What's going on, everybody? I had the mic muted, and I'm sorry for getting started a little bit late. But like I said in the chat, I had an errand to run, so that's why I was a little bit late getting started. But we are here now, and as y'all can see right there on the screen, you already know what we are about to discuss. Hey, what's going on, Bunny? I told you I was going to be getting the stream started, so hopefully this will help your day go by a little bit smoother while you're at work. But as y'all can see right there on the screen, that is what we will be discussing. And this is my first live stream that I have done in like probably the last couple of months. Like I think the last live stream I did was probably in July. So it's been a while since I've done one. And at first I was gonna do this as a pre-recorded video, but I changed my mind and said, nah, I have to discuss this in a live format. Because this is a really breaking news story, and I'm actually shocked that it didn't even trend on Twitter. Because I for sure thought it would, considering who it was about. Hold on right quick, y'all. I'm gonna mute y'all right quick because I have to take care of one little thing. I'll be back. All right, y'all, I'm back. I had to turn my AC unit off because this mic that I'm using is very sensitive, so it can pick up any sound. And it and I don't know if y'all could tell, but it was real muffled in the background, and I can't really hear myself when it makes that sound. But salute to everybody in the chat. It's actually been a long time, not only since I've done a live stream, but since I've done a live stream on a Sunday. Because if y'all was around on my original channel, I had the anti NFL live streams running very like frequently every Sunday in 2017 up until my original channel got terminated. But have y'all been enjoying the heavy hitting topics that I've been doing lately? I feel like I've been going in a lot lately, especially on a certain community. We ain't gonna talk about them today though, but I feel like I've really been like going in on them lately, and I kept telling myself I would not go on them anymore. But they keep trying it. They keep pulling me back. Just like we gonna go in on this topic today. No difference. But how was everybody's weekend? Darviza, you say you like the PPP? That's like everybody's favorite segment. It's one of mine's too. Yeah, my weekend was pretty. It was pretty busy, especially yesterday. I was away from home all day yesterday, which is a good thing for me. I like to actually get out and just just be out. I'm not a person that likes to be at home a lot. That's how you develop cabin fever. But I'm going to just go ahead and get started. Whoever comes in will eventually just come on in. So, as you can see right here on your screen, it says Emmys sexual abuse film Leaving Neverland wins best doc, what stands for best documentary or nonfiction special. Now I want everybody in or people in here, I want to see who's going to be the first one to point something. It's something I want someone in here to point out to me in that title of that article that really stands out. I want to see if we reading each other's minds right quick. It's something in that, it's something in this title that stands out that I want someone to point out to me. I want to see if we on the same wavelength. Bunny, you are on it. Like, you are on it. She said nonfiction. That's exactly what I wanted y'all to pay attention to. Nonfiction. Nonfiction means factual information, meaning everything that is put out there is truthful. I didn't watch not 1 second of this so-called documentary and will already know that all of it was completely false. But they have put that out there to basically say that this is true. You had Wade Robson, that failed choreographer, and James Safechuck, who I think, now looking back at it, I think James Safechuck was in a Michael Jackson commercial way back in the 80s. And now he's come out and they basically said that Michael Jackson did this, that, and the third to him. When, especially with Wade Robson, we know he's a habitual liar. He's upset because he couldn't choreograph Michael Jackson's his Cirque du Soleil event in Las Vegas. His family did not give him the blessing in order to do so, and he's upset, even though he already testified years prior saying Michael Jackson didn't do any of the stuff to him that he was accused of. But they put this out there as nonfiction. Now, this was not given at the regular Emmy Awards. This was a part of the Creative Arts Special Emmy Awards, which is basically the awards given to people who are not awarded on the actual day of the event, which is next Sunday. So it's like a little smaller event for the smaller awards like documentaries, animated shows, and things like that. And I called this back when this first got the nomination. I said it was either going to be between this, the Leaving Neverland, or the Surviving R. Kelly. It was going to be one of those two. And something tell me in the back of my mind, it was going to go to Leaving Neverland because it's Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson has a bigger influence than R. Kelly. Even though R. Kelly is still here and, he still has a body of work that is pretty much undeniable. But Michael Jackson, even in death, still has a very far range that even artists of today cannot reach or will ever reach. And he has a heavy influence. And see, they have to put out there for the masses. And the thing is, they can't pull the wool over our eyes, people who are like my age or older, or even some that are a little bit younger than I am, and tell us that Michael Jackson did what he was accused of. So what do? They put it out for the next generation of crop of kids to put out there that are pretty much don't know who Michael Jackson is, to get them to believe it. And they figure by giving this award to the person who came up with this crap that it would be even more justifiable. And then, of course, you got to throw Mammy Okra wig free into the mix. Because, she's the one that actually had that sit down special with Wade Robson and James Safechuck, which gave it even more ammunition. Don't think we forgot about Mammy Okra. She definitely played a huge part in this. So they have to do this to try to convince people who don't know who Michael Jackson is about these allegations, because that's all they really are, is accusations and allegations, because none of it is true. He was proven not guilty to what he was accused of back in 1993 and 2005, and we're talking about the I don't know what time period they're actually talking about here, because like I said, I didn't watch it. But it's like, who were they trying to convince? Because they ain't convincing me. And see, that says a lot, that they have to try to destroy someone even in death. This man frightens them even in death. Because they feel like, oh, he's gone now. Now here's our chance to really go after him. You have to be a different level of coward to pull something like that off. Like, truthfully and honestly. But they think they actually did something with this so-called Emmy win. They didn't do anything. They probably like, hopefully this will be the one where we finally take down Michael Jackson, where no one's going to ever talk about him ever again. Because even some places started to pull some things like his music and everything like that, but not on a massive scale. Like, I don't think he got a huge smear campaign like the one R. Kelly was going through right now. He did at one point, though, while he was alive, but that was very short lived. And I'm reading some of the comments. Yes, where is the Elvis documentary? Or where's the Jerry Lee Lewis? Or where's the Bryan Singer? Better yet, let's talk about that Harvey Weinstein one. We know they made a Harvey Weinstein documentary. They made one. But guess what? It got buried. It never saw the light of day until well after the fact. And to the point where people would not care about it. And see, the thing is, they didn't want a Harvey Weinstein documentary coming out because it could have possibly, maybe, I don't know, possibly not, gotten a nomination. Now, had it got one, it probably wouldn't have won because, again, Michael Jackson was the more well-known star. Good observation, Hattie. If they hate him so much, stop playing the man's music in every commercial. I remember when they was playing all types of Michael Jackson songs in various commercials. Like, I forgot what commercial it was, but they kept playing "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough," and it was playing some Jackson's songs as well. Because they know that Michael Jackson is still a cash grab. That man made more in death than some people who are still alive making money. That says something. Like when they was doing, I think it was like Forbes or something like that, they were saying that Michael Jackson was making all types of money, or his estate anyway, while he was dead. I think they said the year he died, he was like the highest paid star living or dead. And he still is making money. As a matter of fact, when this documentary, quote unquote, came about, his music sales went higher. I'm like, if y'all trying to bury this man like you claim you are, then why do you keep putting stuff out there about him, even whether it's good, good or bad? More so bad. But I'm gonna go ahead and read this article coming from the Hollywood Reporter, which is where the screenshot came from, and see what else they're talking about, because I haven't read the article yet. Mind you, I was up to maybe 3 something in the morning when I had saw this online, and I screenshotted it and put it on my Twitter account. I put it on my Instagram account, and I put it on my community tab on YouTube and on Facebook. Like, I wanted people to see that. And many of you already had saw it. Okay, let's see here. It says the HBO documentary about Michael Jackson took home one of the top awards after receiving 5 total nominations. So it had 5 nominations. I didn't know that. I thought it was only in 1, but it had 5. It says HBO's Leaving Neverland won Best Documentary, or nonfiction special at the 2019 Creative Arts Emmys on Saturday night. Thank you, Rita. Dan Reed directed the 4-hour film, which featured testimony from Wade Robson and James Safechuck, two men who claim to have suffered childhood sexual abuse at the hands of the late Michael Jackson. Backstage, Reed explained that prior to taking on the project, he didn't know much about Jackson, nor did he have an opinion if Jackson was guilty or innocent. Did y'all hear that? He said, and this is coming from the director, this is a quote coming from the director of Leaving Neverland. He said, prior to taking on the project, he didn't know much about Jackson, nor did he have an opinion if Jackson was guilty or innocent. So basically, he came onto this project not knowing almost anything about Michael Jackson, probably outside of his artistry, and decided to make this documentary as a smear campaign, not knowing much about this man's personal life, interviewed these two nobodies, and wins an Emmy for it. Doesn't that sound like he was a plant put in place to do this? That's what it sounds like to me. And it sounds like something David Geffen would do. Now, we all know that David Geffen did not like Michael Jackson at all. He's probably one of the few people in the world that expressed that he never liked Michael Jackson on a public forum. Everyone knows that David Geffen had a deep-seated hatred for Michael Jackson. Oh, Tanya, I don't need to research it. I already know the majority of them are old white men, like every award committee for these Hollywood award shows, especially the Oscars. It goes on to say, I thought the two guys, Robson and Safechuck, would never speak out in front of a camera, Reed said, adding that in talking to them, he was inclined to believe their claims in part because they described what he considered a romantic relationship. Again, he said he was inclined to believe their claims in part because they described what he considered to be a romantic relationship. So basically, so these two people who were probably complete strangers to you at one point just came up to you and said that Michael Jackson did this, that, and the third to him. It was like a romantic relationship, and you believed it right off rip. This to me sounds like a guy who, for someone who claims they didn't know Michael Jackson, also sounds like a person that didn't like Michael Jackson themselves. He said Reed also addressed Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special, Sticks and Stones, which referenced Leaving Neverland, the abuse allegations against Jackson, and the apparent movement to quote-unquote cancel the star. Chappelle even advised against watching the documentary, calling it fucking gross. Now, remember in the special, Dave Chappelle, to go off topic a little bit, Dave Chappelle said that Dream Hampton had reached out to him to be a part of that Surviving R. Kelly documentary, and when he said, I don't know that nigga. And you can tell that Dream Hampton, who is built like a nightmare, because she looked like she gained a boatload of weight, decided to, try to clap back at Dave Chappelle, but then ended up incriminating herself at the same time. I said, you dummy. He says, I don't think he did it, but you know what? Even if he did do it, you know what I mean? I mean, it's Michael Jackson, Chappelle said in the special, along with other jokes about Jackson's accusers. I know more than half the people in this room have been molested in their lives, but it wasn't no goddamn Michael Jackson, was it? Reed called Chappelle's jokes revolting and a calculated attack against Robson and Safechuck. Well, guess what? What's revolting is this hit piece of a documentary that you did on Michael Jackson, Dan Reed, and you didn't consult with anybody in his family. You went to two complete strangers who are complete and utter liars. The only thing that's revolting is you, your documentary, quote unquote, and James Safechuck and Wade Robson and Okra Wigfree. Thank you, Latifah. And your whole fraudumentary was a calculated attack, and it earned you an award. Hence why the title of the stream is called Rewarding Lies. He says, I think that mocking the victims of child sexual assault isn't a particularly clever thing to do, Reed said. It got some laughs because it was a part of his bit about cancel culture. I never said to cancel Michael. There's nothing in the documentary that says people need to stop listening to his music. Well, guess what, Dan Reed? You put that into the minds of people and the masses because we live in a very sheep-like culture where people will follow the herd no matter who is leading it. And if they say to cancel somebody, they're going to do it. Although when they be trying to cancel R. Kelly, I already know I know that falls on deaf ears because people still be cranking his music. Whether it's in a restaurant or especially at a in like any type of a cookout. But people ain't around here about to cancel no Michael Jackson. I can tell you that right now. Michael Jackson is one of those, for black people, especially in my generation and the generations before me, especially those who grew up listening to him and his brothers, he's what you call Teflon Don. And not just in the black community, but in almost every community around the world. Like that, everywhere that man touched, is like everything he touched turned to gold. More like platinum. He's one of the rare ones. You're never going to get another artist, another full artist like Michael Jackson. And when I say full artist, I'm talking about more than just being a singer, a songwriter, and a performer. I'm talking about someone who had the full package. And you rarely find that with today's artists. And Michael Jackson has transcended decades, like generations. We're talking about a guy who started when he was 5 years old, singing love songs that should be made for adults, and you have this coming out of a little kid. Y'all don't know, but I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. I just am. I always have been. I always will be. He added, you can make jokes about so many things. Why not do something brave? Leaving Neverland earned a total of 5 nominations heading into Saturday's ceremony, including Outstanding Directing for a Documentary/Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Documentary for Nonfiction Special, Outstanding Picture Editing for a Nonfiction Program, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Nonfiction Program, and Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Nonfiction Program. And out of all of those, it won the top honor, which was Outstanding Documentary or Special under Nonfiction. It didn't get the little side ones. It got the main one. Now, you want to talk about something being calculated, Dan Reed? That was calculated. They said, we're not going to give you these little awards. That's nothing. We're going to give you the main one, the one that actually means something. One that can actually go down in history. And see, the thing is this. While we know these awards won't mean much to us, but to those who for who it does mean something to, this now goes down in history. No matter how we feel about it, all we know is some BS. It's etched in history now under this category. So now whenever people look back involving anything with Michael Jackson and they look under awards, this award is going to be attached to it. Now, granted, it's not going to be one that was personally given to Michael Jackson because clearly, one, he's not here, and two, it wasn't really for him, quote unquote. And that's all they're going to focus on. That's just like Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby has a long resume of stand-up, television shows, and movies, and all types of things, and philanthropy. But the Me Too thing, and the way that they drag that out, is going to be the stain on his legacy. They want this award, this Emmy Award, for this fraudumentary to be the stain on Michael Jackson's legacy. They want you to forget everything that he's done, and they're going to throw this at you. Or at least they're going to try, because something just tells me that we're going to forget all about this. At least, well, not so much forget all about it, but not dwell on it. because we know it's some nonsense. But that's what they want to happen. They want to throw this at you so it sticks. They need something to stick into your brain. But they know they can't convince us, so they're going for people who are younger, who are naive to what it is. That's why it's up to us to tell our own narratives. If I were you, y'all could even make this fun. Find any, listen to, have your kids, if you have young kids, play as many Michael Jackson songs as possible. Have them watch the videos. Have them watch any type of special that's not engulfed in controversy. Because what this does is it opens up a gateway for them to make more hit pieces like this. And don't think they won't try, because it's a money grab. They're like, oh, so he won his award. Let me go out there and do something too. Maybe because that just shows right there, I can win something based on a bunch of lies. And that's basically what they're telling people. All you got to do is go out there and convince the masses about something, make it look and sound truthful, even though none of it is. Make it convincing, because we live in a very follow culture where everyone's following something or some type of a trend. Get people to like it, shop it around a little bit, and just maybe you can come out on top. Let's see what else it says here. It says, after Leaving Neverland's debut in January at the Sundance Film Festival, Jackson's estate called the film a tabloid character assassination and insisted it isn't a documentary. Thank you, Dardar. While his family called Reed and the Pick's two accusers opportunists, which they are. They are. The family is correct with that. The family, those three are definitely opportunists, but so is Oprah Winfrey, because she added more fuel to the fire. And ironically, Oprah was on a boat on her birthday with David Geffen, the same guy who has a huge disdain towards Michael Jackson, for her birthday. Ironically, the same weekend or around the same time that Sundance Film Festival is going on. And then that's where the whole thing about the Leaving Neverland starts to come into light. And then she does a sit down interview with those two on her network. I'm sorry, well, the network she kind of owns, because, she doesn't truly own. Most of it is owned by Discovery. So like I said, Oprah plays a huge part in this. Just like I would be going in on Gayle King right about now if Surviving R. Kelly won, because she played a huge part in that. Two mammies. And Gayle, didn't she get like some kind of pay raise out of that? This is, Reed shared his reaction to Leaving Neverland, multiple Emmy nods, in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter. Since Leaving Neverland aired in March, it has launched many important conversations about child sexual abuse and the grooming that accompanies it. Now listen to that. So you mean to tell me it took a lying documentary for people to want to have conversation about child sexual abuse, when you have all these pedophile Catholic priests running amok out here and have been for how many years? And you didn't want to talk about it then, but now you want to talk about it because it's Michael Jackson. What is that telling us, people in the chat? It's telling us that they are trying to make black men the face of being a child sexual predator. Just like with Bill Cosby, they're trying to make a black man be the face of a sexual deviant that cannot control his urges. They're kind of doing the same thing again with R. Kelly as well. This is all by design. I mean, you had, what's his name? The dad from Seventh Heaven, Stephen Collins, came out on camera and admitted that he molested young girls on the set of Seventh Heaven. Bryan Singer messed with little boys for years. Woody Allen had a sexual relationship with his adopted daughter, and you have actresses out here like Scarlett Johansson caping for him. And so many more. But they have to wait until the shoe drops where it has a black man's face name attached to it and is most likely filled with lies, and then focus on them. He says this was why James Safechuck and Wade Robson and their family spoke out, and while we made the documentary, said Reed, we're delighted that the Academy has honored that purpose and our dedicated creative team with 5 nominations. Listen, the reason they gave you those 5 nominations is because of the subject matter. If this was a documentary about any of the people that I just named, or even Harvey Weinstein, you wouldn't have gotten those nominations. Notice that the 2 nominations that involve sexual deviancy, quote unquote, were 2 black men were the focal point. At that point, when I found out that Surviving R. Kelly and Leaving Neverland were 2 nominations in that category, I said, why even bother having anyone else in that category for documentaries? Because I said it, I called it. I said it's going to be one of those 2. And sure enough, it was the one that I knew it was going to win. It says the Creative Arts Emmys are being handed out over 2 nights, Saturday and Sunday, and the main awards will be on Sunday, September 22nd. Amazing. Not in a good way, but amazing nonetheless. And you know what's so crazy? It's amazing that so many other, I guess you could say, melanated people who probably put out documentaries that are good documentaries won't even get a look. They won't even get nominated. Not that they should strive to achieve something like that. Just make it because you want to, and the right eyes will see it. Shop it around, and it might actually get played in a bigger area. And I'm glad I said this. If y'all remember, was it this year or last year? Kobe Bryant had a short film, an animated short film called Dear Basketball, in which he and another creative person behind it were nominated for an Oscar. And he and that other person won in that category. You should have seen the palm-colored madness on social media when he won. They started bringing up all the stuff from his past, and y'all know which part I'm talking about. The part where he was involved with that chick at that hotel all them years ago. They was like, how you gonna give an award to a rapist? Meanwhile, who just got another award at a film festival? What, not even a week ago? Someone in the chat let me know who just got an award not even a week ago. Talking and Grubbing got it correctly. Roman Polanski. I just did a video. Roman Polanski, a guy who was actually convicted of child rape back in 1978, just got another award, and a big award, for some film he did. Ironically, the film dealt with someone who was falsely accused of something. I said, oh, the irony. I bet you wish you was falsely accused, but you weren't. You actually did do what you did. And then when you got found guilty, you fled the establishment and stayed overseas forever, and still managed to make films and still managed to win Oscars and Golden Globes. And now you're winning film festival awards and top honor awards. These aren't no side awards. These are top honors. But they want to get mad at Kobe Bryant for a chick that was lying or a chick that was being a thought. Yes, Roman Polanski is in hiding and still manages to make film and still manages to be held to a high level of esteem and still win awards, even though he is a child molesting freak. But that's just another day in the palm colored planet, or the palm colored Rand planet, I should say. Black Cherubim, you said we have to stop thinking that these people are moral. I've always said that they are not morality. I've always said that, like in comment sections and even in videos, that they are not the pinnacle of morality whatsoever and should not be held to that regard. Oh, you said let's not overlook Paul Walker. Yeah. See, and the thing is with Paul Walker, I didn't find out about his transgressions until after the fact. Some people, I think, said they knew before, but I didn't find out like most people until after the fact, after he died in that crash. So his issues went down with him literally in flames. But yeah, rewarding lies. As long as the lies that are being rewarded are pertaining to us, that's okay. But if they come out with something about, if we was to come out with something about them, and it doesn't even have to be lies, it will be truth. It will get shunned. Look at what happened with Nate Parker when he did Birth of a Nation. But how much you want to bet they are going to push this Harriet Tubman film hard? But based on what I've heard, though, and this is what I've heard, that Harriet Tubman film played at some film festivals. And according to what I've heard, it did not do well at all. And this is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's Cynthia Erivo. And as a matter of fact, the last live stream I did about her was just basically blasting her for the stuff she said about ADOS. But, it's a good thing because it's her. But the bad thing is because of the subject matter. It is Harriet Tubman, who I believe her story should be told the right way. Like, that's a story I've actually wanted to see. But when I found out she was playing her, I was like, I don't know about that. Yeah, Junie's on. I know he's coming out with a new film about another film called American Skin. I'm actually curious to see what that's going to be about. And I said it in my video. I said to those carpet munching mammies and them black feminazis and their crew and their cronies and all of them, they bet not say anything this time. Nothing, nada. And you know what? Since we're talking about film, it's also another telling thing. Can anybody tell me what movie came out this weekend? It was a specific movie that came out this weekend. I want somebody to tell me in the chat what movie came out this weekend. Right. Hustlers. A movie, and this is based on a true story. A movie about strippers robbing and stealing from rich, wealthy men. Let that have been roles reversed. And it would have been a huge outcry from those feminists. Notice those feminazis have not said one word about that movie because they agree with something like that. They truly believe that those women were right to do what they did. But guess who's out? I was going to say, guess who else is in it? But somebody already said it. Cardi B is in that movie. Now, what did Cardi B do a couple months ago? admit on her Instagram live that she drugged men and took them back to the room and had her way with them, and then had some trannies in there as well. Yep, art imitating life. She's literally doing in this movie what she did in real life. And ironically, the movie isn't even about her, but you would think that it is, considering, the circumstances. And I looked it up to see where did that movie come in as far as the box office goes. It was number 2. It Chapter 2 was still number 1, but Hustlers was number 2. So people ran out there, and I'm sure it drew a huge female audience. I know that's the chick flick right there, through and through. It drew, I'm sure, like it was number 2. So people went out there and ran to see Cardi B imitate in film what she's already done in real life, and made all kinds of excuses for this chick. Rita said you had said a thought audience, a strag audience, a flightless bird audience. Yep, that's exactly who went out to go see it. And guess what? I looked up, and to go even further, y'all, I went on to Rotten Tomatoes to go and look up the score for Hustlers. Anybody care to guess what the score was? And I'm not talking about the audience score. I'm talking about the tomato score, like the tomato meter. Nope, nope, Jennifer, not 95, not 90, not 2. Nope, it's not in the 90s. It should be rotten, but it's not. That score of that movie had an 88% by the critics. An 88%, which means on Rotten Tomatoes that would be considered fresh, which means it's a hit in their eyes. But guess what Dave Chappelle's special got? A 0. Then they moved it up to like what, a 33, a 25, and then a 33. But the audience score was way up there. When I found out that they was making a movie called Hustlers, I was like, what is this going to be about? And I saw the cast lineup. I said, uh-oh, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm still curious. And when they said it was some strippers basically robbing rich men, I said, are you serious? And the fact that this actually happened. Because like I said, this movie was based on a true story. But I knew that Dave Chappelle's special wasn't going to get that high because he hit on all cylinders. That lets you know who's running things over at Rotten Tomatoes. But I've never trusted Rotten Tomatoes anyway because they be giving out high scores to movies that look terrible. And the movies that actually look good or are good, they give whack scores to. Like for instance, they be playing a lot of those DC movies. That's how I know somebody over there don't like DC. And not every DC movie is bad. But they be giving Marvel movies some of the highest scores. That's how it lets me know somebody over there works for Disney. But yeah, I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes. Like, I don't be looking at their scores, but people hold them in such high esteem. There was only 2 movie critics back in the day who I trusted with their scores, or with their reviews, their critics. That was Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. Though many of you probably know exactly. Double C, you got it. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. Those were the only two critics that people trusted back in the day. This was before Rotten Tomatoes. And whenever they critiqued something, they broke it down and they actually gave critiques to the point where it was the thing where they were so trusted, people would not go and pay for a movie until after they have said or given their stamp of approval on it. And usually they were always writing their critiques. And they were fair critics. I mean, we're talking about some guys that actually review movies like Boys in the Hood, like hood classic films. And we know Boys in the Hood is a classic, a very good film. But imagine the Boys in the Hood came out today. Imagine if it came out today. But yeah, this whole Leaving Neverland crap is just that it is some crap. I will never watch it. I highly doubt that many people in this chat have watched it. I hope if you have not watched it, continue to be on that same wavelength and not watch it. Nightfall, I did hear that. I did hear about that. I did hear about that, and I'm not surprised that, that happened. I'm not surprised. He struck me as the type that liked a little bit of a little chocolate in his milk, if you get what I mean. But yeah, I'm trying to contemplate whether or not I want to open up this phone line or not, because I would like people's opinion about this whole situation that is being discussed right here with this piss poor filmmaking, if you want to call it that. Rap guy, you said J-Lo called black folks. Yeah, she said it in her songs back in the day. Back when she was on her J-Lo, back when she was with Diddy and all of them back in the day. She said it in a couple of her songs. He said that's why Ben Affleck traded her for another Jennifer. Right. Jennifer definitely been around from the block. That's why she said Jenny from the block. Jenny been around the block. That's for damn sure. I remember it was a joke that Jamie Foxx had did back in the day, because Jamie Foxx was on In Living Color back when J-Lo was a fly girl. And he said back then, he's like, when we used to say, you see, nowadays y'all know her as J-Lo. But back then, when we used to see her, we'd be like, hey, hey, ho. I was dying when he said that. That was too funny when he said that. Like, if y'all get a chance, go on YouTube and look that up. I was dying when he said, hopefully it's still up there. That was too funny. But the only movie I could give J-Lo credit for as far as one where she gave a good performance is the obvious Selena. Like, that's the one where a lot of people found out who she was that movie right there. That movie right there really is the one, in my opinion, that kicked off her career. He said Rosie Perez confirmed J-Lo was a hoe. Yeah, because Rosie Perez used to dance with her back in the day, too. I'll give it to you. Enough was a good movie as well. But as far as singing goes, nah. I'm just reading the comments in the chat right now. Ashton, I think Rosie Perez has some black in her. I think she might. How much? I'm not entirely sure, because I think she alluded to that when she used to be on the talk. But I think she used to be on there. My earliest memories of Rosie Perez was when she was dancing at the beginning of Do the Right Thing. When she was doing that dance wearing the boxing gloves. That's my earliest memory of Rosie Perez. Yeah, Ashanti. Yeah, Ashanti, believe it or not, did a lot of writing for J-Lo back in the early 2000s. And I think she even did some background vocals for some of her songs as well. And some of the songs that J-Lo became known for, Ashanti was supposed to perform. Y'all said y'all remember Rosie from Soul Train. She must have been on Soul Train most likely in the 80s. He said Janet Jackson helped J-Lo. Yeah, because I remember seeing J-Lo in the That's the Way Love Goes video. I remember seeing J-Lo in that video. That's back when J-Lo was fresh off of In Living Color being a fly girl. That's when she was still trying to move on up. As a matter of fact, speaking of stealing songs, I have one for you that J-Lo definitely, well, it wasn't so much J-Lo, it was more so what Diddy did, because that's back when Diddy was dating her. Who remembers that song by J-Lo? It was her very first song called If You Had My Love. We about to expose people's ages right now. Okay. That song, If You Had My Love, was produced by Rodney Jerkins. Of course, a lot of people know who Rodney Jerkins is. He did the whole Dark Child thing. He did a lot of songs for people back in the day. Like, he did a lot of songs for Brandy, especially on her Never Say Never album. But he did a song with Shantae Moore. I forgot the name of the song, but it's a song he did with Shantae Moore. And he did the song with her first. But Diddy heard the beat, the production of that song, reached out to Rodney Jerkins and asked him to use that beat for J-Lo's song If You Had My Love. If you put those songs side by side, they sound exactly the same. But Shantae Moore had that song out first, but it didn't gain the traction because J-Lo was the up and coming Puerto Rican sensation that had a bigger push behind her. So that song, If You Had My Love, became more popular, and Shantae Moore's song ended up getting pushed to the back. Just a little trivia for you in case y'all didn't know. And they interviewed Shantae Moore about that on plenty of occasions. And I think to this day, she never really got over it because that was a song that was really going to propel her. Like, if you have a chance, go on YouTube and look it up. If it wasn't for copyright, I would play a little bit of it on here so y'all could hear it. You said she also copied Amerie's One Thing. Well, the thing is, I don't know what song she copied, but I know this. When Amerie came out with that song, One Thing, that song was played everywhere. You could not escape that song back in 2005. You couldn't. Because I remember when that movie Hitch came out, it was on the soundtrack. Like, that was the lead song for that soundtrack. But Amerie back in the day, and she's from she's from the DMV. She's from DC. I used to think Amerie was one of the most gorgeous women on the planet back in the day. And I've seen her recently, not in person, but like more recently, like as far as like in 2019 in pictures, she still looks good. It's just that she didn't get the push because she came out at a time where Beyonce was getting ready to do her solo thing. And when that happened, they kind of like, it's like they were trying to compete for a spot. And you got to think, Amerie was coming out at the cusp of Aaliyah passing away in that plane crash. Like, she came out like the next year. I'm gonna be honest with you. I always had an infatuation with Amerie's legs. I always said that woman had nice legs. Like, when she was in that Why Don't We Fall in Love video and she's walking down the street in those shorts and heels, all I could look at was her legs. And I don't know, maybe the cameraman had an infatuation with her legs too, because they made sure to shoot at angles where you saw her legs. Yes, Amerie is black and Korean. Her dad is black and her mom is Korean. Which, by looking at her, you could almost now that you know, you could kind of tell around the eyes, but back then I couldn't tell. But she's always claimed her blackness, though. She's always identified as black. But one thing I liked about Amerie's style was that she used a very DC element. DC is known for go-go, and a lot of her albums, especially like her second album going forward, she used a lot of go-go elements in her songs, like with the beating on the trash cans and the different sounds. So she stuck to her roots. You said Beyonce stole Amerie style too. I heard that as well. Like, and they be biting. Listen, out there, they be in that industry. They be biting off of each other. It's just that if you have the push in the machine behind you, then people will overlook it. But if you don't, they're gonna call it out and they're gonna make sure you know about it too. Leo Line said, "Didn't Tommy Mottola try to groom her into another Mariah Carey?" If you're talking about J Lo, then he tried, because it's a little story behind that as well. Like, Because as everybody know, Mariah Carey was once married to Tommy Mottola, who was the executive over at Sony Columbia back then. But when they got a divorce, and that's right around the time when she released her Butterfly album, which had that song Honey on it, then that's when he started to try to sabotage her career. And then he pushed J-Lo even harder, because that's when J-Lo came in and he pushed her really hard to try to keep Mariah down, even though we know who was the better talented artist. And that was also around the time, too, when Michael Jackson called out Tommy Mottola and called him the devil. Many of y'all saw that video as well. That's why Michael Jackson's album Invincible did not get the push that it did, because he was on the Sony label. And that was also around the time when he owned over 50% of Sony's publishing. Because Michael Jackson actually said that him and Mariah Carey would have private conversations about Tommy Mottola that people didn't know about. He kind of alluded to it when he was on that stage in New York, and I think he was in Harlem when he did it. So he was talking to a majority black audience at the time. He said that Tommy Mottola is the devil. Those are his words. He was very bold to do that because he was calling out a very powerful man at the time. But they made sure to bury his album Invincible, which was a very good album. Came out in, what was it, 2001? Because I think it came out right before 9/11. But yeah, he was bold. Like, he wasn't scared to call him out. And I think if you look at the video, he was timid to say it, but the people in the audience boosted his head up, and he just came flat out and said that Tommy Mottola is the devil. And when you saw like what he was doing, because like I said, when I tell you he was a powerful man, he was able to call certain people. Because as a matter of fact, I want to say Destiny's Child was on that same label. And that's right around the time when they did that, when they came out with that song, Say My Name. So he made sure that, and notice that he did this push with a lot of female artists. He did a lot of his underhanded stuff with a lot of female artists. But yeah, the music back then, especially like in the 90s, late 90s and early 2000s, can't be replicated even to this day. It just can't be. It just can't. And one thing I liked about Michael Jackson is because like I said in the earlier of the commentary, he transcended decades. He was around in the late 60s, all through the 70s. He practically ran the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. How many artists can you say can have successfully done that? Not many. And still have a level of relevancy. Not many can say that. He could and still remain humble. I'm not even gonna lie. Michael Jackson was one of those artists who I always said I wish could live forever. Like, I remember when I found where I was when he died, when it announced that he died. I was actually on my way to my uncle's house because I was installing something onto his computer. This is back in 2009, so I was like 20. And then I went on Facebook and all I saw was R.I.P. Michael Jackson, and I went on Twitter and saw the same thing. I'm like, what is going on? And at that point, they were just saying he's in the hospital and he's in a coma or something like that. And then I got home and I turned on 106 in Park, and then that's when they announced that he actually died. And people say that the internet is undefeated. I would say Michael Jackson's death defeated the internet, because I remember when he died, when it announced that he died, the internet froze. You could not do anything. You couldn't tweet nothing. You couldn't post anything on Instagram, Facebook. You couldn't Google anything. Everything froze because all of the connections were tied up with Michael Jackson this and Michael Jackson that. He trended on Twitter #1. I remember he trended on Twitter at the #1 spot for the entire summer. From the day he died all the way to like the end of August and going into September, he was the #1 trending topic. Like when I found that out, I just froze. Like it was one of those moments. Like the last time I froze when an artist passed was when I found out Aaliyah had died in that crash. Probably Left Eye when she died in her crash. But Michael Jackson, that was something different. Oh yeah, when Prince died, that was wild too. Like that was really unexpected. Like nobody saw that coming. I would say that Michael passing, um, Whitney passing, uh, Prince. Those are artists that we grew up on. And even though I'm a millennial, 30 years old, my parents made sure that I listened to music from back in their day. And they always told me to make sure to appreciate this type of music because when you get older, you'll understand. It's almost like they could foresee what direction music was going in. And now looking back at it, they were right. And a lot of people probably wanted it to be a hoax. Who was that who said that? Taylor Green, because the internet loves to put out hoaxes that people died. I remember when I was on Twitter, they kept saying Bill Cosby died. The internet killed Bill Cosby. I don't know how many times before what's going on with him now. They used to like every time I got on Twitter, like every other month, they said Bill Cosby died. I'm like, the man. I would always have to go to the internet just to confirm to see if he was still breathing. They stayed trying to kill Bill Cosby back then. I was like, I wonder if that's a foreshadowing if that was a foreshadowing for what was to come later. Yeah, I remember when Luther died. That was whew, I was in high school when Luther passed. Another shocking death was Gerald Levert. When he died, I was like, whoa. I was like, he was so young, and I don't know if he had like an illness or something like that, but I think they said he went overseas and he had caught something, and he came back and he had like a fever, like he caught some kind of rare illness or something from overseas, and he came back, and he just died. Yep, and his brother too. Like I said, I couldn't imagine being his father, Eddie Levert, that you lost not one but both of your sons. Like both of your sons went before you. Right, Heavy D as well. Like he went overseas and got some kind of illness and he died. But I'm about to go ahead and just end this stream. I just wanted to come on here and talk to y'all about that. I'm glad we had the lasting discussion that we just had. But I wanted to just come on here and talk about this because I knew I couldn't talk about it in a pre-recorded video. I just couldn't. But we'll be back tomorrow with the regular scheduled programming. The 4 videos per day. 9:45 a.m., 12:45 p.m., 4:45 p.m., and 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, y'all have a good night, and I will talk to you in the next one.